Welcome to Wallbreakers, a podcast by emerging creatives for emerging creatives, presented by the Digi60 Filmmakers Festival. I'm your host, Bernice Romero De Gracia, a scriptwriting graduate from Algonquin College and an emerging content creator. From one emerging creative to another, the biggest creative block is breaking into a competitive industry. How can we break down those walls and root a stable foundation for our passion? Here at Wallbreakers, we sit down with Canadian artists to chat about the challenges they face in establishing a creative career and advice they have for those who have yet to embark on this journey. In our very first episode, I sit down with Kishan Sondagar and Hussain Dawwas. Both within Ottawa's thriving creative community, Kishan Sondagar is a director at the Greasy Fix Media, a professional videography and photography business, and has received 2 awards for his film, The Middle Eight, from the 2023 Digi60 Filmmakers Festival. Hussain Dawwas has also received 2 awards as an emerging filmmaker for his entry into the festival, Watch What You Have. Together, we kick off the podcast by talking about the fears and struggles we tackle as emerging creatives. Hey Kishan, hey Hussain, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you guys being here. And I wanted to first ask you guys, Hussain, why did you choose a creative career? Because we're all emerging creatives in this room right now. Why did you want to do it?
Yeah, that is a tough question, right? Ultimately, getting into a creative field, you want to tell something, almost tell a story, and really represent something that's meaningful to you. And, growing up, the family around me mainly had businessmen, doctors, engineers, etc. And I really could not see myself in any of those fields. And ever since picking up my grandpa's camera when I was younger to my dad's camera, I feel like that was the direction that I had to go, and started writing stories. And there's still a lot I need to learn, still a lot of experience and hands-on work that I need to do. But I believe that getting into a creative field is very important in terms of representing, telling stories, and really shedding light to certain facets of the world that other institutions wouldn't shed light on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about you, Kishan?
Similar, I like to be able to share a story in a visual way. Myself, I'm not the best reader. I'm not the best speaker. So being able to maybe show people through pictures, moving pictures, images, visuals, it's more appealing, at least to me personally. And I like to just share with anyone and everyone. And one thing that really drove me into the creative world, I would just see somebody walking down the street and I'd think to myself, what story do they have to tell? And in a weird way, how can I make a really mundane topic like someone buying a coffee? How do I make it interesting to a viewer? Did the person go and get a coffee and then they walk to their office and then they put it on the table, and then all of a sudden someone knocks it over by mistake, and then it turns into just a whirlwind of them having to go get another coffee and just looping or something? I don't know. I like the idea of taking a topic and just running with it. And similar to you, so I got into cameras as a kid. My dad and my uncles were camera repair people. And I used to help them in the shop, and I hated touching them because I had to play with the parts or bring them parts or do this and that. And then I learned that, hey, you can actually have fun with the camera if you use it. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. Take a picture, and then at the time it was film. So then you would wait the 2 to 3 weeks to finish a roll and then send it. So I kind of learned a little bit of patience on that. How do I frame something well enough, and that maybe I'll remember the frame. But
I think that's really cool. It's just I have felt the same way too, honestly. Seeing strangers in my everyday life and thinking that you don't know anything about them, but they definitely have their own story. And I never thought of it that way. I think that's really cool that sometimes you think about how you can present their story and just finding the beauty in mundane everyday life. That's one thing too that I've been looking into and just trying to find how can I present these everyday things in a way that looks unique, because I think, especially like as a creative, I think in very visual terms too, and like what I mean by that is like whenever I like see something and I perceive something, like I wonder like how it could be presented, like what kinds of like ways can I present one thing in many different things, because like many things in life are like multi-layered, and like there's always going to be different sides of like of one person's life, which makes up like their whole life and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's really cool. But yeah, and you guys touched on like how your familial backgrounds rather inspired you to start like a creative career. Yeah. So coming into this, because we're passionate about the things that we do, and it's something that we want to continue doing. But the reason why I wanted to start this episode off with emerging creatives is because I wanted to get like insights from one emerging creative to another and find out like what are the things that scare us about getting into an industry like this, and what are those like barriers and that we want to break past, So yeah, I wanted to start by asking like, what are the things that scare you the most personally about getting into this industry, because it can be so competitive. Yeah.
I think perfection and self-sabotage, actually. I don't know if maybe you can relate too. You want to be able to show something with such passion that if you make a mistake on something so small, the whole thing just falls apart. Yeah. Which is, after doing the first short film for Digi60, I kind of felt that when we were doing the post-processing. I spent so much time with editing audio and trying to get Julian helped a lot with the color and just exposure in post. There was a point where like Claire, the one who wrote the film, she just came into the room. She's like, it's done, just send it. And I'm like, but it's not done. And if I kept working on it, I most likely would have missed the deadline. So self-sabotage is probably the biggest like inspirational downfall to anyone. I saw you kind of nodding about that. So you...
Like, I definitely agree with that. Self-sabotage is one thing, especially when you're in a pretty creative and like artsy like field. Mm-hmm. You always like, at least in my case, I find a sense of like, I feel like a fraud sometimes in this field, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like these are like the early stages of like my career, right? But it's the kind of inclination that you give yourself. Oh, am I really meant for this? Yeah. All the story is bad, scrap it, throw it away. I'll start something else from scratch. I think it's that barrier that also like intertwines with self-confidence in a sense, that once you break it, it's kind of like, all right, you can go all out to a certain extent, right? Yeah. Because you also want to maintain a sense of humility in this field as well, right? And without it, really, it'll be I find that at least it will be a pretty tough journey.
Yeah.
I see that. Like, what's the term for it? Imposter
syndrome.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome. Yeah. So like when I was in computer engineering, I didn't feel imposter syndrome, and in a way, I just kind of felt like I'm too comfortable, for what I'm doing. I feel like a sense when someone feels too comfortable in something, there's no room to grow or nothing to push. Right. And that's why I think this field, it's kind of important to feel like a bit of an imposter. Because the thing is, your story is never going to be the same as someone else's story. Your vision's never going to be the same as someone else's vision. So I think finding a balance between I don't belong and I'm doing something different is very important. I don't know, like I didn't go to school for it, for being a creative. I don't know if you have to go to school to be a creative. I guess not, because I'm sitting here. I don't know. And the first time like shooting like a commercial project, I was like, what am I doing? Like one time like I forgot my SD card at home. Like, oh no, I gotta run back into home, get my SD card and run back. And I was just like, why? Is this meant for me? And I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And like maybe you felt the same. And then you won some awards, and like it kind of worked in your favor, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like that definitely is major boost of confidence and does give you the motivation to continue, as I'm sure you won the award as well, right? So
Award twins.
But yeah, that definitely does creatively benefit the individual, I'd say, for sure, right? It's a step in like breaking that barrier almost that I was just talking about.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with everything that you guys mentioned, because especially with the whole like imposter syndrome thing. Like I read a quote like just a few weeks ago about how imposter syndrome is actually kind of important to feel, because it means that you actually care about what you do. And when you don't, when you're not scared, or if it doesn't scare you enough, then you just don't care about it. And it's not going to push you to find your highest potential, right? It's always just a constant feeling of like, oh, I think I'm so great, and then sometimes you'll not feel so great, right? And you know, I think it's vital to have those ups and down moments, because being in a career and an industry like this, it's a non-linear process of growth, and you need to be able to realize that, and to push past that perfectionism and the fact that you're always going to be a work in progress. You always have to, it's not like you're always like, you're never grateful for the present moment, and you're never grateful for the things and the acknowledgments or awards that you receive like in the present moment. But that doesn't also necessarily mean that you have to settle, right? I guess like when you're starting a career like this, you want to be able to identify what your unique identity is and everything. But I think there's also that beauty in just the self-discovery of it, that I think there can be a balance in having an identity, but also having that identity be very multifaceted, and you have multiple sides like to yourself that you want to show. So yeah, is there like, what are things that like you want the world to know like about yourself? Like what sides do you want like to portray in a creative way?
Yeah, another tough question for sure. Because yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of falls under finding yourself eventually, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the growth as a creative or as a filmmaker, is eventually getting what it is that you want to show, right? Can I pinpoint it exactly?
Yeah.
No, I can't right now.
Well, eventually.
Yes. Eventually, yes. However, at this early stage in a career, although you do want to take some form of risk, I still find that there's a lot of growth to do. If there's like a specific passion, project, story that I really want to get out of my chest.
I guess maybe it just comes back to like my family. I'd love to be able to show people a story that they've never heard or seen about. I'm sure similar case with you. Like my whole family, majority of them are from like Kenya, I mean, yes, I'm Indian, but it's weird when you tell someone that my family's from Kenya. They're like, but you're not like African, and it'll just be kind of cool to like showcase different people's backgrounds. And like, that is a hard question, actually. I am blanking, but I don't know. I love documentary style stuff, so it would be cool to showcase a side of people's lives that people don't normally see, or they won't even think about, right? Like they'll read someone like a book, like the cover of a book, and be like, oh, that's just a whatever, like a normal dude, he's wearing a suit, whatever. But then you don't know how many layers are behind him, and everything that's connected to him. Like maybe so-and-so person has 3 kids, and the 3 kids are these like award-winning whatever, dentists, surgeons, whatever. So maybe deep dive into that. I don't know.
'Cause I notice a lot that you guys tend to take a lot of inspiration from like your familial backgrounds and like your upbringings, where you come from, and I can relate to that a lot too, as an international student who came from the Philippines and just moved here to Ottawa. So just, you know, having those kinds of experiences and trying to integrate them into a completely new country. Like how can I also show like those sides of myself, this version of myself that I'm trying to build right now, while still staying in touch like with my roots and with that side of me that influenced me to search for more, which is why like I'm here like in Ottawa right now, and that's why I'm talking to you guys, you know. And yeah, it's really cool like hearing your guys' stories, and like there's like past that imposter syndrome, like it's remembering too that there's power in the stories that we want to tell. Because I guess going back to what you said, Kishan, earlier about seeing a stranger anywhere, like in public, and wondering what their story is like, it's definitely the same for when other people like see us, because we're strangers to them too, and we have our own stories that they don't know about. And there's a lot of strength in that too. Yeah.
Especially when you're seeing like hundreds of faces on a daily basis, just on your, you know, mundane commute.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Everyone has their own uniqueness at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Their own emotions as well. Like walking down the street, you'd be like, oh, why does this person seem so disgruntled? You know, there could be like, you know, 50 pounds on their shoulders that they're just trying to shave off, but they can't because it just keeps piling up. So like, I just think just in general, it's important to just treat people with respect and dignity, even if they're not showing it, right? Like they have a lot. People just have things going on in life that we have no control over.
Especially like me personally, because I'm still going through my programs. Like I commute and I travel every day. Like we see so many more strangers than we see like the people that are regulars or that are constants in our lives. So yeah. There's so much strength, I think, in vulnerability too. I think I stand by that, and I think that is something that kind of defines my creative work personally, is that we always want to put our best foot forward, right? Especially when nobody really knows anything about us yet, when we're starting our careers. But there's so much power to be found in our weaknesses. And because, you know, that's what fuels us to be better versions of ourselves, which is why like I think it helps to like identify like our fears coming into this kind of career, because that is what's going to make us like it's what's going to help us push past those barriers, because we'll be able to like identify and analyze what kinds of solutions we can find to pushing past them and stuff like that.
No, I agree. Like I am, in many cases, right, as a creative or as an artist, right, you have to make yourself vulnerable, because what you're seeing on screen or on the canvas, right, is a reflection of the artist, right, regardless of whether it is like an indirect or direct reference of their own vulnerability or their own thoughts. So yes, no, I fully agree with that.
You guys mentioned that you received awards like for your projects before. I wanted to know like more about it. Could you tell me more about the projects that you worked on and the awards that you won?
Sure. So a little bit of backstory. I never went to school for filmmaking. I never made a narrative before. I've shot like a couple of like small commercial stuff, but this was for the Digi60 Film Festival that happened in December. And one of my buddies, he was like, "Hey, there's a film festival coming up. Like, let's create something for it." And we were kind of in the process already of like just wanting to create something fun that people could just share on social media. So, anyways, when he said that there's a film festival going on, I was like, "All right, let's see what the details are." And we're already pretty late in the season for it. I think it was like 30 or something days already in. So we signed up anyways, and we created a short film called The Middle Eight. And lo and behold, we finished it in time, and I got a director's award. Actually, I shouldn't say I. Like our team got an award for the film, because without the team, that logo would not be existent right now. So then we created a film. I got top 5 within the film along with yours. It just kind of it's blossoming from there.
Yeah.
Just the sparks and ideas started just like generating even more of like what else can we do. And now we have like a Doodle Drive Millinotes thing, just like with 100 short film ideas and like 2 or 3 feature film kind of things that we want to do. But until then, just we keep grinding and doing whatever we can to make it there.
Yeah. What about you, Hussein?
Yeah, the film won 2 awards, one being the Best Director Award, and the other being the Best Technical Award. And yeah, these awards really did help, as I mentioned earlier, with boosting like one's confidence and one's like trajectory in such a career. And especially with the technical award, right? Again, I just want to give like a shout out to John Pelaganis. He really helped implement my vision exactly as I had it, right? Ultimately, yeah, these awards, I just got to continue grinding, right? And hopefully get a next award soon and even get accepted into certain like festivals and screenings.
Yeah, that's cool.
Basically, just I got to continue grinding. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it's just a constant, it's a constant grind, and it's a constant work in progress. But also, I think it's important and worth noting to find that balance between the grind and the rest, because especially now, because we're so focused on trying to prove ourselves, that we're stuck in this mindset of the hustle culture that's become so popular, and that we keep on pushing ourselves until we eventually lose sight of our goal in mind, or why we started this kind of career in the first place. So yeah, what are your thoughts on hustle culture in particular, especially for us as we're starting?
I think it's important to be driven by it, but don't let it consume you.
Yeah.
To have the drive and wanting to keep going, and especially in a creative field, there is some competition in a certain way. You want to be able to show your work and work with the people that you want to work with. Not to say that you want to be better than everyone else. It's being able to better yourself. You're competitive within yourself. You're not really directly competing with other directors or other DPs or gaffers, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think there is also the sense of people wanting to keep going and going and going until they burn out and hit a creative block. And then you can't write or shoot or edit like you used to.
Yeah.
And then you figure out why is this happening? Then you keep going even deeper and farther and just grinding and hustling even more. And then it's just like a continuous down slope. It's just a snowball that just keeps going.
Yeah.
I don't know. I try to live my personal life just with as much balance as I can. I'll work really hard as much as I can for a week straight. Then I'll take 1 or 2 days just to decompress. Don't look at a screen as much as I can.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of stuck scrolling sometimes, as we all do, just to see what other people are kind of doing and other inspirational things. But I think it's important to balance it, hustle, but then take the time when you need the time.
Yeah.
To mentally and physically. Our bodies, we don't own our bodies. We loan our bodies, right? Everything's in our head. We are within our minds about what we do. You don't have control if your muscles start to hurt. Yes, you stretch them out, but then you need time to let that body and that muscle repair itself, right? If you don't respect your tools, you don't respect the people around you, you don't respect your own body, the hustle culture will it'll take you for a dive, and some people just don't get out, right? So it's a double-edged sword, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
No,
What about you?
I mean, you pretty much brought up all the main topics. The key word is genuinely just balance.
Yeah.
Finding that balance, because I've genuinely reached that creative block before where I just burnt myself out at some point. I'm this is just not good, right? Just had to go to the gym, had to go out, take a couple days off. But ultimately, finding that balance is what's really important, right? For your own mentality, for your physical self, and for the people around you, right? You don't want to be showing up to just say a set, right? And you yourself are not in a healthy condition, right? And with that, you're going to be projecting that onto others. Yeah. And that's where everything burns out, right? Whether it be on set or even just in an office to a certain extent, right?
Yeah, it's really important because I personally, as a script writing student in particular, like I I do think it's important to find like that routine of getting into writing like regularly, but at the same time when you're staring at a project for so long and it's just like, or rather it's like that one same project that you've been working on for how many days or how many weeks, months, even years, like you just you tend to blank out like a lot of the time. And like I think like it's so much easier said than done, like trying to find or trying to prioritize that balance between working and resting. And now I think it's now that I truly realize getting into this kind of career, it's just I need to be able to step away from my laptop, like even if it's for as long as a week or over a week. Like it's important to let your brain rest and decompress from all of that, because when you're like bombarding yourself like with all of this like information, it the more that you're going to keep on like running into that creative block, right?
I agree. It's also like within that scope of giving yourself a break. I think even social media in general, like it's important to
Yeah.
like disconnect from it. Like obviously keep in touch with your friends and family, like give them texts or calls. Don't throw your phone away, but like log out of Facebook and Instagram for like a month.
Yeah.
And just that alone will just like set your mind into a state of like just some sort of like, it feels like ease,
Yeah.
right? Because then it's not like you're comparing yourself to other people, and then like from there, like that's when the hustle culture starts to like really push, and then the self sabotage of like why can't I do this if all these other people can do it? But like the social media algorithms will just show you the best of the best. So like trying to compare yourself to like, I don't know, like an Olympic snowboarder or skier, for someone who's like skied or snowboarded like maybe, I don't know, a couple years in his life. You see these people trying to do these crazy bathtubs. It's like, why can't I do that? Like, well, they've done it since they were like 8, and they had a strict regimen. And if you're able to like, take that influence instead of taking it in the sense of like, why can't I do it? It's more of like, how can I do it? Then that's important.
No, yeah, you definitely need to reboot your brain every once in a while, especially with social media, right? Because not only are you being like fed, or like the example that you just stated, right? But also like there's so much toxicity, especially that I see on social media, and that's always my one main thing of like, okay, I need to take just a couple days off this like mess, you know?
Yeah. It's easy to hate, but it's hard to love. So it's so that break aspect really just kind of levels out your, I just should say like your own aura.
Yeah.
Right? Like
You really find yourself to a certain extent, or like help find yourself.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. It's
And that's what it's all about, really, like especially like with us, like being able to find ourselves and trust in that process rather than always like aspiring for the end goal and just like having that tunnel vision that I want the end goal, but we tend to forget to find the beauty in the process as well. I think that's the thing about our generation too, is because we're in an age where we're just consuming so much all the time with like screen time and all that kind of stuff. It's like we want things to happen so fast and so quickly, and we want like the sense of like abundance, we want it like with us like as soon as we can, that we lose touch like with the reality of like that process, and that taking your time and taking things slow. So.
It's like that the image that you see sometimes of like the steps, and then there's like someone at the top of the steps and someone at the bottom of the steps, but then you see the little like literal steps in between to get from like A to B or A to Z, and like you gotta enjoy the little things. Like you made a mistake recording some bit of audio, you just like, okay, you know what, I don't have to like just completely 86 the whole project. I could learn from it. Like how do I then save the audio? So like that's a little tidbit of like information that you'll then learn and take along for the journey. But yeah, it's a slow journey, like all of this creative stuff. It's also scary, but yeah.
I mean, like to like trust that process, right? You also have to heavily trust yourself, right?
For sure.
I think sometimes not trusting yourself can also be beneficial. And like Like if you think that some shots don't look cool, and it goes against your 180 rule and all that kind of stuff, just do it anyways. Like it might not you yourself might be holding yourself back and you don't know it, right? You're only gonna try and do whatever you're comfortable with, and then if you decide to be uncomfortable with what you do, and then you're like, okay, I'm breaking a boundary, and maybe I'll learn something from it, or maybe just the shot is a complete waste, but you won't know until you don't trust yourself.
Yeah, it's honing that gut feeling, really, and honing that creative intuition, which again is something that comes with time. And because we're in a generation where we want things like so quickly, like we want to be able to develop it right away, and so that we can be how many steps forward in this kind of industry, stuff like that. And I think like Kishan, you mentioned earlier about like you're not really competing with any of like your crew members and stuff like that. But I think especially like with emerging creatives, like we're our own worst enemy and we're our own worst critic, and we have that tendency to want to compete with ourselves, even, which can and cannot be beneficial at the same time, because we're always striving to be the best version of ourselves, right? But at the same time, it's also that sense of self-sabotage and that sense of perfectionism that we get from that, and from competing like with like it's almost like a negative or evil alter ego of ourselves that wants it. It's like it wants the best for us, but it wants us to get to that part of ourselves through more toxic ways, or through more toxic, like negative, like traits or paths, rather.
It's such a wide open topic.
Yeah.
Just trying to you're fighting yourself to be more creative, but you also have to stay within boundaries of not just like destroying what you're trying to create. And then, just trust in yourself to take a step back and just let it be how it is. And even like when you do work with a crew, like your DP, like you let your DP he knew exactly what shots that you wanted, and you let it fly. If you put your trust in your crew and the people that you're bringing on the project, there's a reason you bring them on this project, because you know that they have the vision in mind that you see, and they're going to put their spin on it. And having their spin and their uniqueness on it is what will make film A turn into the film that you want.
Yeah.
Or a music video, or a project, or a commercial shoot, whatever it is. Because we don't all have the same vision.
Yeah.
And if we all did, then we wouldn't. Like the moment I stepped into the room that we're in, I was like, "This is cool." I never would have thought about putting a light behind, like different color lights behind each person to really dramatize the what angle we're shooting at, whatever it is.
Having the trust in your crew, in turn, they have the trust in you, as a director, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you get everyone to work together in harmony, and establish that vision, that one direct vision, right?
Yeah.
What are maybe I want to ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So like, if you were to create a film or go in that kind of world outside of just writing, if you were to direct a film, like what kind of film would you want to direct? If you were able to pick up a script from a table and be like, this is the one that I would like to create, what would it
Do
be?
you mean like it's not something that I wrote, rather
Yeah.
I'm working on? Oh. Now I'm on the other side
Yeah,
of the
so
table. It's
yeah.
hard to I realize now it's also hard to think of an answer. But no, it's all good. It's all good. Well, I guess there's like two things that like I gravitate more towards. One being very slice of life kind of stories. I like, again, going back to like the whole concept of everyday life. I like finding beauty in the everyday mundane things, and being able to portray that, especially in film, I think is honestly one of the things that got me into film in the first place, is that it's able to make you see life differently, and make you also find the beauty in your own life, because we tend to get so stuck and spiral into like the negativity and the things that are going wrong in our life. But sometimes even like in film, like it could be a really sad slice of life kind of story, but it still finds a way to portray that so beautifully, whether it's through the the dialogue, if it sounds like very poetic almost, or if it's through the visuals and the kinds of shots and cinematography, the color grading, the color palette that goes into a film. Like, though, like, I think that's definitely, like, if I were to direct a film, I think that's something that I would want to. That's the kind of project that I would want to delve into in the future. And the second thing I think is it's almost kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum, where I also really like very dark things. Like I'm getting into psychological thrillers in particular, and just, the way that the mind works is so weird, but so beautiful, but so messed up at all at the same time. And I want to be able to portray that too, like in visual terms, into a film. And just I think one example is I have yet to like explore more like psychological thrillers. Like I just got into it, but like the one that I can think of right now is Whiplash. Yeah, like just it's not like the kind of thriller where like there's very like horror style, like unrealistic like things like going on, but what makes it scarier is that it's rooted in realism, right? And just that the mental sabotage that is being inflicted like on the protagonist, which I think is also like, it's also connected also to our craft, because like he's a drummer and he wants to be good at his career and like and at his passion, but because there's like so many things like pushing him towards perfectionism, he's losing himself like in the process. And I think that's such a universal human experience that I would love to portray to like in film, especially like the visual side of things, because what we see in real life and sometimes the things that we see in our head, like they don't necessarily align, but they can definitely still like mix, and you lose that sense of what is real and what isn't. I think when films are able to do that, I think it's really intriguing, which is why I got into psychological thrillers too. So yeah.
I mean, especially in Whiplash, right? As a drummer, it's his daily thing. It's a mundane subject to that individual, right? And I forgot the director for Whiplash, right? But it's turning that mundane thing into what we have in Whiplash, right?
Yeah. So moving forward, like with the conversation, like as creatives that have just started, like with the projects that they've had and wanting to make more projects, like what are the specific challenges that you faced, or when you were making like your earlier projects, or like there are things that or challenges that you only realized as you were under production?
Making time to eat food.
Yeah, it goes back to rest, really. Like, yeah.
Just you get so like invested in getting the shots that you want because the lighting or the sun is in the perfect spot, and obviously I take the time to get those shots, because then you have to wait another 24 hours for that, and maybe the next day's cloudy. I digress. But make sure you're well fed, you're hydrated, you're eating good food while you're creating the film, your pre-production plan, that you're feeding yourself like proper fuel. And the day of, like on the day, just make sure that your crew is fed too. If you're feeling hungry, guaranteed 1,000% of everyone else is feeling hungry.
And then everyone's just gonna get hangry. Like,
exactly.
So.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Hussein?
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple challenges that I can think of. One is for sure kind of like being responsible on set. You're responsible for, at least like as a director or like a producer, to a certain extent, you're the one responsible for everyone on set. And it's just the constant back and forth of working on the film, but making sure that this individual is doing like fine, right? Making sure that there aren't any wires around, even though that's like on a bigger production, that's the job of like a PA or
like GE, like electrical,
or like electrical and grips, etc. But yeah, I feel like it just making sure that everyone is healthy and doing well is like obviously while balancing the production aspect of it is one thing that want to make a bit more not easier but more of a feasible sort of thing.
Yeah.
No, that honestly that makes sense. Like, I almost feel like I go into like grandpa mode where I'm making sure everyone is good.
Yeah.
You know, like you take like that extra 5 minutes out of the day to be like, hey, everyone got coffee, everyone got food.
Yeah.
Everything goes back to food. I think I'm just hungry yet, to be honest. But anyways, just making sure everyone also just has the proper equipment. Like if like going, yeah, you're responsible for every single person on set if you're a director, producer, whatever. And then yes, you have your assistants and people to help. But at the end of the day, you still feel that sense of responsibility that like, if we don't produce the scene or the end product for what we kind of envisioned, like we kind of feel like we're letting the team down. So I guess that actually is quite a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think like trust kind of goes into that as well, right? Because you wanna trust the crew members to be doing their job, right? So like as an example, as like the PA, right? Kind of have the inclination to ask the PA, for example, oh, did you like you managed to do this, and right? But like you kind of have to trust them like initially, right? Not have to constantly like bombard them with the questions. Oh, did you do that? Did you do this?
Yeah.
That goes back. It ties into like you work with the crew that you're comfortable with and the crew that you trust. Like as soon as you start feeling like you have to micromanage, then that should be, if you don't realize it, that should be like an indication that maybe this isn't the crew that I should be working with. You know, because like if you just give someone a camera, then if they could shoot the shots that you're kind of not thinking, just you have to communicate it to them.
Yeah.
But if you have to like handhold it with them, it's different.
Yeah.
But that's a big challenge.
I wanted to bring that up too, like just letting go of that sense of controlling everything and being a control freak. Like you need to be able to work with other people and work with the team, especially like in this industry. Like especially I learned like as an emerging like script writer that you need to let go of like being precious over your work. And I guess it's not really like, it's not submitting to what other people want to do with your work, right? But rather trusting that this is supposed to be a team effort and that you're not the only one working on the film. Like, yes, you may have written the script. Yes, you may be the one directing it. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to work with the team and work like with everyone and have good relationships with people and good rapport.
I feel like being or going to like a director role, I think it's important to like also note that it's not really your film. It's everyone who's working on it. It's also their film. So being able to like really like strive to make sure everyone's happy, has everything that they need. No one's gonna hurt themselves like if there's wires on the ground. And like sometimes it's just being like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna clean up even though like I'm the director or whatever. I'm going to clean up and make sure it's a safe space for people. Just maybe the GE or whatever is doing something else.
And I think that's another thing too to remember is that no matter what stage we are like in our careers is that we have to always have that beginner's mindset towards everything and to stay humble in that too. Yeah. Would you say that like with all the challenges that you mentioned, like this kind of relates to like the next question that I have. It's like, what do you think are the challenges that people who are just about to get into this industry, like they have zero experience and they want to get into it, like what do you think are the challenges that they should be prepared for? Like are they the ones that you mentioned right now, or are there other like challenges that you think that you want to add on to that other people should know about?
I personally think putting yourself out there is like a big roadblock for some people.
Yeah.
Like being maybe if you're more introverted, it's hard to go to like a random rental company and just talk to the people there. Be like, I don't know what an easy rig is. Like, how do you put it together? What I actually just speak from experience because I'm using one tomorrow for the first time, so I'm kind of nervous about it. Super excited, but I went to the guy and I was like, hey, like I don't know what this is. I've seen some YouTube videos. Like, how do you use it? It's just like a backpack with like a thing on top. But like as a newbie, it's like it was daunting for me to be like, I don't understand this. Like I think it's important. That's a big challenge for some people. Is knowing that like when you don't understand something, just it's okay to ask. And like 9 times out of 10, the person over the counter or wherever is like they're gonna be super pumped to teach you about it, right? So I mean that's a big challenge.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with that. Right. Going back to the film that was submitted to Digi60, right? The initial like challenge for me on that was actually going to different locations, right, and talking to the owners or managers of these like stores in order to be permitted to film there, right? And it's kind of like that isn't the only case, but like even just say you're on different sets, bigger sets, right, or you're at a networking event, really being able to approach an individual in that sense is very important, right? Especially when you want to amplify yourself, almost put yourself on the spot. There really isn't, especially like in a career and field such as film that requires a lot of connections and networking, right? You really need to put yourself out there. So I couldn't agree more with what you said.
Yeah.
Especially like as introverts, as I can imagine many introverts. There are more introverts now than there are extroverts.
Oh, really?
I don't have any statistics or anything. I'm just saying this out of just pure intuition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I agree. To all of it.
Yeah.
It's it is scary. Just even posting something on as easy as posting like a BTS scene on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right? Just like you're putting yourself out there. You're putting your what you're doing out there for people to see, and then you're in a way it's kind of scary. You think that someone's gonna comment or say something like, "Oh, like I would have lit it differently" or whatever. But I'm like, you would have lit it differently for sure. But I'm doing it the way that I think looks cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's regardless. It's scary. It's scary to do.
Yeah.
But if you don't do it, then you don't know where.
Yeah, you'll never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know what will happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes you win awards if you do the thing, and sometimes you don't. And then you learn from mistakes, and you network with the people, and things happen.
Yeah. Networking is a huge thing. It's really hard for a lot of people, and like, I still am improving like my networking skills too. But yeah, it's hard, but you need to put yourself out there. You need to, you need to take up space, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And you shouldn't be afraid to take up space, because at the end of the day, everybody's trying to do the same thing. We're all just trying to survive. We're all just trying to, get ourselves out there and be able to live off doing something that we want to do for the rest of our lives, right? Yeah.
It's not something that's comfortable at all, right?
Yeah.
Going back to like what we mentioned about how, like if you're comfortable in this thing, like then it's kind of like, is it really something that you're gonna end up doing kind of situation, right?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it? Like, is there a rush when you finish whatever project you're working on? Do you feel like accomplished? And I feel like, if you're uncomfortable and you finish something that you're proud of, and you get that rush of like, wow, we did that, like that we finished that random idea that was just a little like in someone's brain, and we turned into like a picture. That's also like electrical
like one
current.
of the best feelings like you could ever have, I think.
Yeah.
I've learned like a lot like from you guys, like even just as like from one emerging creative to another, like even if we're just starting out like in this career, there's so much still to learn from each other, regardless of what stage we're at. So I also wanted to know, like, what do you want to hear in future episodes of this podcast?
I think a lot of like mental block and creative block. That's I guess, you know what? Maybe just people's personal experience.
Yeah.
Because we just through conversations like what we're having today, like it's important to just learn about how other people navigate a challenge, or what kind of challenges they face. Because then maybe there's a challenge that this one person has, then you kind of look at it and be like, hey, that's not really a challenge. But then you can then impose it on yourself, be like, are my challenges just being amplified for no reason, when it's really just like myself blocking myself from doing something. I think, yeah, people's personal experiences would be cool.
Definitely something to do more with one's mentality going into this field, right? You know, we've talked a lot about that creative block, the imposter syndrome, and just hearing industry professionals' experiences, right? Whether, like, regardless of the industry, is very, very valuable, right? No matter, like, whether that person is, like, successful or not, all of this is very valuable information that you would put it upon yourself to either, like, do or not do.
Yeah, regardless of whether you're a filmmaker or a visual artist or a graphic designer, it's still within that realm of creativity, and there's so much still that we can learn from each other in that sense. So the last question that I wanted to ask you guys is, what do you want to tell your future selves, or send out a message to your future selves? Let's say in, like, your future self in how many years? What do you want to tell them, or what do you want to let them know as you're talking to them?
That's like one of those little cast things that you put in the ground and bury it.
Yeah.
Not like a
Open a time capsule.
Yeah,
thank
time
you.
capsule, yeah.
That's tough. I think one of the best things that I would want to tell myself in 10 years is, even if I don't get to where I want to go, I'm still heading towards something. I think I'll just leave it at that. I don't know how much more detail I'd want to go into.
Just gonna leave a little mystery.
Yeah, because you don't know what's gonna happen in 1 year or 2 years. So I think just whatever direction I'm going in is where I'm going. But I don't know. Very vague.
Amen. Yeah. I agree.
Just read, continue reading, whether it be smallest article to a whole novel, a web article. Just reading is so valuable, especially in this, like, day and age, right, where you just overconsumed by everything on social media. Just picking up, like, a physical copy of a book and just sitting down and reading it is so, like, it just clears the mind so much, and it fuels your creativity, it fuels your ideas, right? And, like, the topics can just be completely different, and it still benefits you.
Yeah, you know what? Whenever I read, just on a personal level, like, I start to daydream when I read. Then I have to go back a page to like, what did I read?
Yeah.
And you know what? The sense of reading, even though it seems counterintuitive that I'm not actually paying attention to what I'm reading, it helps a lot creativity wise. Because then you just kind of, like, your mind just kind of wanders. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just can't focus on words properly. I don't know. I'm not a big reader, but when I try, and then it just kind of turns into me thinking about things that don't have to do with the book.
Like, that happens to me, like, so many times. Like, just reading it, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Just go back to it. And, like, genuinely just the difference that reading a book, or, like, even like a comic, right, just before bed does to you compared to, like, scrolling on, like, your phone on Twitter or whatever. The difference is just so immaculate. You wake up so much fresher. You have a better sleep.
Yeah, I'll try that, actually.
Definitely read.
I'll do that shot tonight.
That's something that my dad always told me growing up. So it's gonna be something I'm gonna follow for the rest of my life, for sure.
Yeah. We touched on a lot of things. There's so much to learn, and that's why I wanted to do this podcast in the first place, is to be able to reach out to different people and hear about their stories and what can we learn from them, because we're all here to support each other as we're going through this journey. And everything that we talked about in this episode is definitely going to be a helpful bouncing off point for the future episodes. So guys, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time, and I loved hearing your stories and just being inspired from you guys too, and as fellow emerging creatives rather. And yeah, I look forward to whatever you guys do in the future.
Thank you. And you're amplifying everyone else's voices as well, right? So that's another great thing with locals, especially here. Thank you.
Thank you for engaging with us in this episode. To learn more about Digi60, visit us at digi60.org. Till next time, keep on emerging, and I'll see you on the other side of the wall.